first thing that I want to point out here is in this verse, which I think is really important, and we find this the whole way through the entire Bible. I underlined the word God. This has, it's interesting how the thing about prophecy and what I'm talking about now kind of goes together in this, is that you are a priesthood to offer up spiritual sacrifices acceptable to God. I'm afraid that, I search my own heart in this, and I know that this is a fact, that what we believe is different than what is written. And what we have is that you are to expect that the priesthood will offer up something acceptable to me. See? That we come before God, as it says in John read it. Let us draw near, and we draw near to God, expecting that He will offer up something acceptable to me. Okay? And I think I'm just thinking back over all the many years and teachings that I've heard where this idea has been subtly and yet powerfully presented along the way. Just thinking about one guy that he would start every and I'm not I'm not critical here. I'm just saying that the way I took it was screwed up. Is that he would say, "Come expecting a blessing. Come expecting a blessing." And there's a and the thing about expectation is that you can have your own expectations. One of the things that David said is he said, "My soul, wait thou on God, for from Him comes my expectation." It's in Psalm 100, and you can find it. But it says, "My soul, wait on God, because from Him comes my expectation." And so if we get our expectation and we come expectantly and we have an expectation that's sourced in God, that's a good thing. But if we have an expectation that says that my expectation of God is that He better come through with something that's acceptable to me, then there's something that dies. There's something in priesthood that dies, because priesthood is all focused on God and not on man. So that's the first thing that I want to just say in here, is that my attitude over the years is the same as most other people. Who among us has not said, I didn't get anything out of it? I don't know. I didn't get anything out of that. I'm not going back because I just don't get anything out of it. I tried God. Yeah. But I don't know. I just didn't get anything out of it. And even in our whole thing here today, we can have testimonies about things like that. The reason I know that God was pleased was because I felt it. See, I felt it. And so there's an expectation that says that I expect a certain kind of feeling. I come worn out from the week. running on fumes, and I expect that I will become filled. I will feel filled up. I'll feel better about the problems of my life. I'll feel better. And I'm not saying that that's all wrong, but I'm saying that it's backwards. See, it says that seek ye first, priority number one, the kingdom, and the other things can be added, but don't hold your breath. And we'll get to that a little bit later on. We'll get to what that means here in just a second. So, David said something that I want to point out in here. David said this. We won't get into the whole details of it, but he says, "Neither will I offer burnt offerings unto the Lord of that which does cost me nothing. Neither will I offer burnt offerings unto the Lord of that which does cost me nothing." And I think that there's a good principle in the area of understanding priestly sacrifice, is that David, he said that if it's going to be something that is going to be acceptable unto God, remember Peter says we offer up sacrifices that are acceptable to God, not necessarily that which is acceptable to the people, and not necessarily that which is acceptable to us, is that he said that one of the things about acceptable sacrifice is that it costs me something. Spiritual sacrifice cost just as much as the physical sacrifices did in the stick figure picture that we get out of Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, is that the spiritual sacrifices have just as much cost. Remember, if you were here before, Moses categorized the sacrifices into 6 categories. He categorized them very neatly for us into 6 categories. Only 2 of those categories were sacrifice for sin, and we know that Jesus has canceled that out. Nobody asked the question, what about the other 4? What about the other 4? See? But that's, I think, where the apostles come in, and they outline some things for us about how these other 4 continue on into our New Testament age. All right, so I looked at the word cost in this verse here. The Lord, I will not offer unto anything that does cost me nothing. The word cost, Hebrew is such a cool language. It means precious in my sight. That's what the word cost means there. I will not offer to the Lord anything that is not precious in my sight. Okay? Now, what is precious in my sight? That's the question I had to ask myself in this thing, is that what is precious in my sight? What's precious in your sight? And that, I started thinking, that varies from person to person. See? I could ask Daniel over here, just helping you stay awake. I could ask Daniel here, if all the family photos went up in smoke, If I asked my wife over here, if all the family photos went up in smoke, but sacrifice means going up in smoke, doesn't it? Isn't that what sacrifice is? Going up in smoke? But see, what's precious in Daniel's sight is not what's precious in Bonnie's sight. Okay? And what's precious in Dwayne's sight is not the same as what's precious in Michelle's sight. And therein lies the challenge of domestic tranquility. Because there's a difference of what's precious and what's not precious. Oh, I see there's other people that are married too, huh? I see that. Yeah, I see that. Oh, man. So, the first thing that I want to say about sacrifice is that sacrifice is, remember what I said last time I spoke, is that sacrifice means to slaughter. It's not the kind of word that puts money in the offering plate. But sacrifice means to slaughter or to just kill. And the apostles use all kinds of other words, mortify and put to death and shed blood and all these kind of words. But really what it means is it means to kill something that which is precious in your sight. Because David says that if it's going to be something that is going to, where God is going to go, this really, come bless the Lord, my soul bless the Lord, it has to do with that which is precious in your sight going up in smoke. Okay? The next thing about sacrifice is that it goes up in smoke, that thing which is precious in your sight, not in somebody else's, but in your sight. And guess who knows what's precious in your sight? You might keep it a secret from everybody else, but God knows what it is that He's put His finger on in your life. Second thing is that if it's a sacrifice, there is no expectation of a return. There is no expectation of a return. Old Hezekiah, he drags his goat in and he gives it over to the Levites. So he comes with his goat. What does he leave with? Okay. It wasn't an investment. Hezekiah didn't come dragging that thing in there because it was an investment. Sacrifice is not an investment. And look out, people. This is something that I think is churning around in the Christian community, is that you might give unto the Lord, but you expect a return on your investment. You can look at all kinds of scriptures, kind of things like, give and it will be given unto you. So what does that turn into? Give so that it will be given unto you. See? And there is a issue of the sword of the Spirit digging down and finding out the thoughts and the motives of the heart in this word sacrifice. It's not alone. It's not alone. Okay? Jesus said this. He said, and we think of this, you'll see. Jesus said this. It says, if you lend to those of whom you hope to receive a return, what good is that? And if we are approaching the priesthood with an attitude that says, this will be good for me. This is good for me. There was a guy in the Old Testament that he hired some Levites to be priests, and when he got through making them priests and they were offering up sacrifices, he says, now I know that it will go well with me. And that was in a time of lawlessness where he was doing his own thing instead of that which the Lord wanted done. Now I know that it will go well with me. And that is an idea that is in the church today, that there's slogans out there and all kinds of things that say that you are a Christian because it will go better for you. Your relationships will be better. Your finances will not be in such chaos. You will not be ruled by the culture around you. Is that being a Christian, you do Christianity because it's good for you. And there's a real sell in that area, and it's not just now, it's always been there. Paul was just spitting mad at those that said that gain is godliness. Is that if you're godly, you're going to gain. See, there's some gain in it for you. Now, if you're a mature thinking person, say, well, okay, if I sacrifice that which is precious to me, I may not get back the exact thing back, okay? But I will, in the end, get a return on that. So I give some material thing, or I give some some soul thing, and I expect a spiritual return on that. It's not a loan. It's not a investment. It's a sacrifice, and I don't think, even in our society, what's a sacrifice? I said before, a sacrifice in baseball is when a guy bunts and he gets thrown out at first. Why? So that the other runners can advance. Why does he do that? Does he get a return on his investment? Well, he doesn't get to come across the home plate, but guess what he gets to do? He gets to be on the winning team. He gets to be on the winning team. So even our idea of sacrifice ends up with a motive that says this is just an investment. This is just an investment. It doesn't go up in smoke. Actually, it just converts into something else precious to me. Okay. All right. Okay, one more thing. Leviticus says this. It says, a burnt sacrifice is an offering made by fire. Fire doesn't really... it's an offering made by fire. It's going to go up in smoke. But here's the rest of the sentence there. It is a sweet savor unto me? I mean, how many of you, Louis, do you sit on your, when you're burning wood during the winter time, do you go sit by the chimney on your wood stove and go, No. So I'm not saying that sacrifice is going to be pleasant for you. I'm not saying, you guys, come on now. It's not going to be pleasant for you. But who is it for anyway? Who's it for anyway? Remember Daniel? Pictures. Oh, look out. Very precious. Very unprecious. Okay? Very unprecious. But to God, when it goes up in smoke, it is a sweet savor unto the Lord. And that's not just an Old Testament idea, because in the writings of the apostles we find the same words used, is that sacrifice is a sweet savor to the Lord. He enjoys it. he gets blessed by it. I don't feel blessed. Well, what about come bless the Lord? Don't you understand? I don't want to be sarcastic. I'm sorry about that. Here's something else. It says, yeah, well, what about this thing? It says it's Matthew 25. I'll go on. Okay. Well, I guess I don't have it up here. Matthew 25 says this, and I've talked about this before, is that it's talking about the parable of the talents. Guys had talents given. Here's what it says, and this fits in really well with something that somebody said. I think it was Adam that said, "Be not weary in well doing." So the Lord gives out these talents, and these three guys, they do stuff or don't do stuff. Okay. Here's what it says: after a long time. After a long time, 25 verse 19. After a long time, the Lord comes back to ask for an account of this. Okay? And he says to the faithful ones, and I heard it 2 times here. I heard it from Sarah, and I heard it from Rocky today. Well done. He wants us well done. He wants us well done. After a long time. After a long time. Doesn't something die inside when you think about that? After a long time of well-doing. After a long time of well-doing, the Lord comes back. And I noticed that the 3 parables before it all had to do with this problem of the Lord not coming as soon as you wanted Him to. You needed Him to. He had to get here. I'm running on fumes. And after a long time, the Lord said, well done. Well done. Now you're well done. It took a while on the grill, didn't it? It took a while on the grill. We're tough meat. But it says, okay, if the servant does well-doing for a long time, what does he get out of it? What does he get out of it? Here's what it says. It says, enter into the joy of thy Lord. Enter into the joy of thy Lord. And those that think of sacrifice as an investment are going, that's not much of a return on my investment. Look at all the stuff I did. Look at all the stuff I've endured. Nobody knows the trouble I've seen. See? See? And we're going, doesn't sound like much to me. Well, as long as there is this thing of investment, that I'm only loaning my time, I'm only loaning my effort, I'm only loaning, expecting to receive back, joy of the Lord is not that much of a reward. Jesus said the reason he endured all the trouble he did was because of the and those of us that are waiting for something else are going, is that all? It really digs in, doesn't it? It really digs in. Digs in deep. And I'm just going to leave it there because that's something that each one of us has to look at as far as, is that all? I think there's a lot of empty seats here because there's a lot of people that said, it just wasn't enough. It just wasn't enough. It just wasn't enough. It didn't hold me. It just didn't hold me. Okay, but I want to take a look at the next sacrifice. Remember last time I talked about the sacrifice of praise and what dies when you do a sacrifice of praise. There's a dear sister here today that called me on it some time ago, and man, did I learn a lot. I took it to heart and changed something in my relationship with the Lord. But it says, let us therefore offer up the sacrifice of praise in Hebrews. Okay, man, did I not want to praise. There was something that had to die in there. But that's not the only sacrifice that it talks about here, because it goes on and says, and to do good and communicate, forget not, for with such investments, with such sacrifices, God is well pleased. Man, I'm looking at that word communicate there. Well-doing was one that came up today. Be not weary in well-doing, because there's a sacrifice in keeping on. It's not sexy. It's not glamorous. There's no applause. There's no gratitude from man in this whole thing, but there is a thing of well-doing and doing it for a long time. It says, in due time you shall reap. So you go, well, there's a verse that says that if I do something, I'm going to get a return on it. Well, it doesn't say when. It means in its own time. And the Scriptures is very, very, very full of the idea that we don't get all these promises until after we die. Founders of communism hated that idea. They said, that's just that doctrine of that you won't get yours until after you die is a ploy by the rich to abuse and take advantage of and manipulate the poor. And I'm not saying that the rich don't do that. But I'm saying that the whole idea, Marx and Engels, they just hated this doctrine. They just hated this thing that says, you're not going to get everything in this life. In fact, you may not get much in this life. Do not hold your breath. Okay. And Paul, he just says it on almost every page. He says, the reason I go through all this stuff is because I have something waiting for me after I die. After I die. So, do good for a long, long, long time. Because that's a repugnant doctrine to the world. It's a repugnant idea. Because this world, and the world has gotten into the church many times, that says, get it now. God wants you to have it now. And if you're not getting it now, find another group. We used to call them turn-ups. They would turn up here. They would turn up there. They'd turn up over there. They would turn up. They call them turn-ups. Oh, he's a turn-up. I remember him. He was back here 6 months ago. He's a turn-up. Because what was he doing? He was waiting to get it now. And if I don't get it now, I'm on a constant search for getting it. See? There's just something in here about doing good that makes you go up in smoke. Remember, I said that the parable of the talents is that, well done, you have been faithful for a long time. is the implication. You have been faithful for a long time in puny things. In puny things. I will set upon you, if you remember my teaching on that, it doesn't say I will set you over. The original thing said, I will set upon you more puny things. And everybody says, that's it. I hear there's just more action down the street. If you're a good and faithful servant in puny things, he will set upon you more puny things. Well, where's the reward? Where is the reward? See? I work hard, and what do I get? More work. If you gotta have your best life now. Okay. Communicate is the big word that I'm going to look here. So, okay, communicate is a huge, huge word there. And I was just telling Jeanette before the meeting is that she was asking about my family members, and I said, well, I don't hear from them. I don't hear from them. In fact, when we poke it a little bit, they say, fine, just leave me alone. Just leave me alone. I don't want to talk. I don't want to write. Don't ask. And I have all of my siblings are that way. They're reclusive. And I have reclusive tendencies. I mean, I'm part of the family. I'm part of that family. And this word communicate really digs into me. I remember when the Lord started after me as just a young Christian, I'd be walking along one side of the street, on the sidewalk there, and I would look up ahead, and there was some people up ahead. And my first, strong urge was, guess what, O thou recluse? Guess what it is? You see them up there? Is I need to cross the street. I need to cross the street. And I remember even as a young Christian, and I asked myself, but I think it was the Holy Spirit that was in this little dialogue with me too. He said, why do you do that? Why do you do that? Because I don't want to communicate. I don't want to communicate. The word communicate is the word, and some of you may know, you may not know any Greek, but you may have heard this word, koinonia. You know, koinonia is a word that has been put on organizations and books and songs and things. And the most common understanding of that word is fellowship. Fellowship. And you know what fellowship is. It's the 2 C's. Coffee and a cookie. So what okay, we got that. Coffee and a cookie. So we've got fellowship. So, okay, hallelujah. We're done. We know what fellowship is now. Fellowship is koinonia is such a huge word. I researched it out, and do you realize that in the letters of the apostles, the word koinonia is used in 15 different ways? 15 different ways. It's so huge, and it's used in so many different applications. It's amazing. It goes all the way from the word, I'll get way over here, contribute, which has to do with putting money in the offering plate. And many of you women have offered up a sacrifice of koinonia because you put the effort into preparing something to eat for pot bless. If somebody didn't offer up a sacrifice of koinonia, okay, no coffee and cookie. And it goes all the way from that kind of communicate, and the next one right next to it is distributes, and that's kind of like Ruby's Pantry. So that's way over on this side. It goes all the way over to this side here, where the word is so hard to understand. It's the communion of the body and blood of our Lord Jesus Christ. Can you see the continuum? Well, we won't get into all of that, but here's the ones that I want to deal with today, because this word is huge, and every one of them is going to involve and require something precious in your eyes being sacrificed. I'm just taking a look at communicate in this way right here. Communicate, koinonia, to give and receive thoughts, opinions, and facts by talking. Well, that seems pretty easy, doesn't it? Wives, how easy is this for your husband? Oh, man. This is a sacrifice that is well-pleasing to God to give and receive thoughts by talking. Most people think that this is, that people get up here and speak, Steve, me, Rock, anybody else that comes up here often. The reason why we do this is because we like it. We get a sense of fulfillment from this. We get a rush. We get an incredible return on our investment. Doc is not here today, but I would have him come up here because he's exploring the waters of communicating his thoughts by talking. He says to me the other day, Doc, brother, and that says it all right there. I tell you, he is exploring the sacrifice of communicating. And he knows what great fight, great heat that allows this thing to go up in smoke. But that's not the only thing. I just said, okay, what is it about communicate that dies if I offer up my thoughts, opinions, and facts by talking? What dies? What gets sacrificed? What goes up in smoke if I communicate? And way back there, I thought, why do I do this? And I could not at the time go, there was a sacrifice, because I knew that if I came up to them, they would expect me to talk. Women, some of you may not understand how painful it is to talk. But it's not just men that it's painful for. I have 2 sisters, and they say, "Do not talk to me, because I can't stand the pressure of having to respond to you." So it's not only men. But as a man with reclusive tendencies, with isolationist tendencies, maybe we have a lot of seats here because there's lots of Christians with isolationist tendencies that don't understand that it's a sacrifice that is well-pleasing to God to expose yourself to an environment where you're expected to talk. What dies? The first thing that I think dies, and these are just mine. Remember, it's precious in your sight, not in my sight. I'll just share with you mine. What dies if I communicate? The first thing that dies is that my opinions and thoughts are going to get cross-examined. Somebody is going to, if I express thoughts, opinions, and facts to somebody, they're going to reflect that back, and you know what? They may not agree with me. I don't want to go through the hassle. I just don't want to go through the hassle of expressing what's personal to me and sharing it out there with the likelihood that they're going to respond back. Oh, I was just ripping and snorting about a month ago, and guess what I got? I gave them my opinions, and I gave them my thoughts, and I named off the facts that I had, and I was just had a head of steam up, and guess what? A dear saint came along and went, pop, with just 3 words. Oh yeah, you need to praise the Lord. 5 words. Okay. Next thing, my privacy gets sacrificed if I communicate. I'm a private person. That's just the way I am. Accept me the way I am. That's all. Okay. Well, you can do that. You can do that. But how are you ever going to enter into the joy of the Lord? If you won't do that, if you won't faithfully keep at it, and I have to keep at this thing of communication. I don't want to. My wife knows that I would like to just stay in my man cave until I die. I'd just be happy, and then maybe nobody would know that I died because I didn't tell anybody. Okay, my privacy gets sacrificed. Next one. My fear of appearing foolish has to go up in flames. How many of you realize that your fear, and Greg really was after that today, was really after that. How many realize that your fear is something that you hold on to as is precious in your sight? You hold on to your fear. This is my fear. Remember Captain Kirk? I need my fear. I need my anger. That's what makes me me. And that your fear of appearing foolish, fear of being cross-examined, fearing the feeling of feeling awkward. See? And so many times they say, I don't want to talk to them because I just feel awkward. That is something that needs to be put on the altar of sacrifice and let it go up in smoke. Another fear that I have so I don't communicate is the fear of intruding on somebody. I wouldn't want to intrude. Wouldn't want to intrude. You get this really strong leading that you should go and visit somebody. I don't want to go visit somebody. I don't want to go visit somebody. Oh, and you say, get behind me, Satan. And what is the sacrifice that the Lord is calling for? My fear of intruding. My fear of intruding. Another one. What goes up and this one may not be everybody's, but it is this thing, my ownership of my intellectual property. By communicating up here today, I just give out my very best. I give out my very best. It's precious to me. Okay? But I give it expecting absolutely no return. I don't do this in hopes that after this meeting, people are going to come up and say, really good. See, I've had to work through that. Every person that addresses the assembly has to deal with that thing. What needs to go on the altar is the preciousness of what I have prepared. You've got to go out there. Especially realizing that about 80 to 90% of what I say here will be forgotten before you hit the door. You just waste it. You just waste it. Why? Because it makes the Lord happy. It's the joy of the Lord. It's not, this will make me joyful. It makes the Lord joyful. I didn't mean to use myself as an example that much. Here's the big one here. What goes up if I communicate? My moods. My moods. I'm a moody person. Okay? I go up and down. I can cycle through moods many times a day. Many times a day. Some of you don't understand that, but you cycle through moods as well. And moods, sometimes you're in the mood to communicate, and sometimes you're not in the mood to communicate. There's times when the phone rings and it's one of our kids on the phone. They're coming back from work and they have a long commute and they want to talk. They want to talk about this, talk about that. And sometimes I'm in the mood. And I pick it up and I say, "Hey, how you doing?" There's other times where I'm not in the mood. I'm not in the mood. And so the phone rings and the Gestapo of the telephone over there, she picks it up and she says, "Oh, it's so-and-so here." And I'm going, I'm not in the mood. Not in the mood to talk. Well, my moods have to go up in smoke. My moods have to go up in smoke. Okay? They have to be killed, even though they're precious to me. My moods. I can feel the way I want to. Don't tell me how to feel. You don't know me. And of course, the last one is, the thing that goes up in smoke if I communicate is my time. Time is a big issue, and it takes time to communicate. You could be doing something else. How many times have you been communicating with somebody and you're thinking about, I could be doing something else. I could be doing something else. And you're not even there. Oofta. It's terrible, yucky stuff. You're not even there. And the only person you're fooling is yourself. Because everybody knows you're not even, you really don't care about what I'm saying. So that's another thing that has to go up in smoke. The next one is participate, and I'm going to be done here. The next one is like unto it. To participate is koinonia as well. Participate means to partake in an activity with others. Ooh, man. I grew up in a country where we didn't have these assemblies, these rallies before athletic events in high school. They didn't have those where I grew up. And so when I was a senior in high school, I got dropped into the middle of an American school system. And here they had these weird things where they'd all pack into the gym, and you were supposed to you were supposed to participate. You know, everybody come down here. Everybody with green come down here. And all this stuff. And I just found my way to the highest bleacher. Guess who was in the highest bleachers in high school when there was these rallies going on? Who was in it? The kids that sat back there and went, "This is stupid." Right? Where did I get that? I didn't even grow up with the thing. And yet there was this thing that was so precious to me, and I call it false dignity, and that's one of the things that is involved here, is that I had developed a false dignity that said to participate is not dignified. To remain aloof is much more dignified. And so my dignity has to go up in flames if I am going to participate. Participating in the body of Christ is called Koinonia, fellowship. It is what we hold in common, is a participation together. And that's not only here in the meetings, that's all over the place. In Acts, they had the big four. They had apostles' doctrine, prayer, breaking of bread, and fellowship. Koinonia is the biggie there in that thing. Koinonia was not just being in a meeting together and listening to someone speak. Koinonia had to do with a whole lot of participation in each other's life. They were participating in each other's life. Some of the best fellowship I have ever had was getting together and splitting somebody's firewood for them. There was a real participation and there was a real bonding that took place. Okay, well, let's come bless the Lord. Yeah, he did. And because fellowship, another one is sharing, is that when we get done with yours, okay, sacrifice and participation, my laziness. I don't want to do anything. Don't make me do anything. I don't want to do anything. It takes energy to participate. Again, it's my privacy that goes down the drain when I participate. My individualism, my false dignity, because whatever it is that they want to do, I consider it to be stupid. And my belief that it's stupid has to go up in flames. I have to sacrifice it. Why? So that I can be a nice guy, I can go along to get along? No, because it makes the Lord happy. It's a sweet savor to Him when you do that. Well, it's not a sweet savor to me. I got home and I collapsed in a chair and I went, I'm exhausted. Where's the return on my investment there? No. Okay. Okay. And then, of course, the last one in participation is that it will take time. I could be doing something else. Another thing is about participation is that it's not that I don't want to do anything, it's that I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that thing. See? Every one of us has a meeting or a series of a time in your life when you really said, now that was the Lord. Now that was really the Lord. And that becomes precious, precious, precious in our sight. And it could be in a whole variety of different ways. But the thing about it is that when the fellowship says, let's have everybody participate, you measure what is being done now with that mental picture of what you had decided was that's the way a meeting should be done. That's the way things ought to be. And if it's anything less than that mental picture, I don't mind participating, but I don't want to participate in that way, because that way doesn't cut it. It doesn't reach the standard that I have in my mind of what a good meeting should be. It's got to go up in smoke. You got to sacrifice that thing. You got to let go of that nostalgic, the good old days. Oh man, when the Lord was really moving. And all that stuff that we got, that's got to be sacrificed. It's not so that I don't want to do anything, it's I don't want to do what you're doing. If it was like it was like the way it should be, I'd participate. But not going to. Last word there is forget not. It says to do good and communicate, forget not. Ooh, I did forget to be in fellowship this last week. Ruby's Pantry came, totally forgot it. Totally forgot it. It was a place that I participate in. And I totally forgot it. But I really, really forgot it. I really forgot it. But that's not the word here. The word here for that we have as forget means to lie hidden in order to escape notice. To lie hidden in order to escape notice. And I tell you, when it comes to doing good and communicating, these are the places where we sink down in the weeds. We just kind of blend in with the background, and we hope that nobody is going to make me do good, and nobody's going to make me participate, and nobody's going to make me talk. And I just sink down and lie hidden to escape notice. That's what that word means. And that is exactly the opposite of what we have been taught, is that we are supposed to lay down and escape notice because you don't have anything to offer. I am the one. And so that's what I have to say about sacrifice today in practical terms, is that this is digging into me, and I trust that it is of benefit to you too.